Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is James Crow, and I'm current president of the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities. We are most pleased as an association to be hosting this, which is a first for us. This is an online forum of service providers for persons with disabilities in the Greater Balkan region of Europe. We have met in real life on numerous occasions in the past in provider forums across Europe, but this is the first event where we have sought to have our provider forum online. The Balkans is a very large area, or the Greater Balkans is a very large area of Europe, and we are very pleased to have not only many countries present in the Balkan region, but many members of EASPD in that region, in your region of the Balkans. And therefore we regard this event as a very important one in our calendar and a great opportunity to share experience across our countries and across our organizations. Just before we came online, the panel were all noticing political problems in our countries and political challenges. Many of us, we've had those for a long time, but we also have the pandemic to work towards and work with for the foreseeable future. And this is a good opportunity for us as providers to share our experience and to learn from each other and to gain strength from having that opportunity to meet. So I'm very pleased to welcome you to the webinar and to hand over for our moderator for the proceedings, Ms. Vasilka Dimoska, who has been a board member of EASPD for many years and is from the organization Poraka in the Republic of North Macedonia. Thank you, Vasilka.
Good morning, dear friends, dear colleagues. I would like to welcome you on this first regional service provider forum. Unfortunately, it was planned and it was prepared to be organized in Skopje to be host of all of you. But unfortunately, because of this COVID situation, at last minute we switched to be online forum. But however, I'm happy that we have this initiative to talk about all the challenges that we are faced in the region, to start a new chapter of collaboration, and to plan some other further activities. I really do hope that next year we can have in person this kind of regional meeting with more colleagues. Now let's start with the before we start with the agenda today, I would like to share some technical info which you can see on your screen. The webinar will be recorded and will be shared with the public after the event. Activate the real-time English subtitle by clicking closed caption button on the control panel. Your microphone is muted to ensure the quality of the session. Only the speakers on the agenda can have opportunity to speak, but you can ask your questions on the question and answer button on the control bar or on the chat. So all the participants can ask questions that panelists, speakers can answer in the period of question and answer that is planned on our agenda. Now we are starting with my favorite topic, early childhood intervention and support services for children with disability. We are starting with Emanuela from Albania and Mirela. So please, Mirela and Emanuela, share your presentation and have a floor.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Vasilika. The first to start is Eglantina Shlaku from Health Life Association. So we will be presenting, two of us, me from Down Syndrome Albania and Egla. So Egla, please take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Emanuela. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here in this regional forum, which is very important for all service providers in the Balkan region. As Emanuela mentioned, we from Albania will have a joint presentation, Health Life Association, which will be represented by me, and Down Syndrome Albania from Emanuela. We will start with the presentation of Health Life Association at the beginning, which Health Life Association is a parent organization established in 1998 from parents of children with disability, which provides programs that accompany the person with disability for the whole cycle of life. Our main programs are early child intervention, community-based rehabilitation services, and independent living. Under the early child intervention, which is the topic that Albania will represent today, I have first I have to stress that in Albania there is no structure or program which is legally recognized by the government, but there are only actions or practices by different NGOs like ours or the SA or other organizations. I will briefly represent what we as Health the Life are working in these directions. We work in 4 cities of Albania, in Tirana, Vlora, Durrës, and Kukës, providing a kind of service of early child intervention program, which will provide service at home for children with disability from 0 to 8 years old, supporting kindergartens and individual therapy in our center for approximately 120 children with development delays. Also, in frame of this program, we have accomplished 2 studies of assessing the capacities of educators working in the early child education institution in Tirana. And based on these 2 studies, we have drafted 2 manuals, which are composed by 8 modules for educators working in the early education institutions. And based on these manuals, we have trained 375 educators working in early education institutions in Tirana, Durrës, Vlora, and Kukës, which are trained to identify and treat children with disability and development delays. About the community-based rehabilitation services, this is an experience that we are working since 22 years of our existence. And we have competences and a long expertise in this field, which we have shown it by establishing 4 community-based centers in city of Tirana, Vlora, Durrës, Kukës, which 3 of these centers are now administrated and taken over by the municipalities, which was one of the main objectives when we started to open it in cooperation with Save the Children. On this program, we provide psychosocial education programs for approximately 700 children and adults with disability in all these centers. Also, we provide psychosocial support for around 2,000 parents from our start until today of persons with disability. We have also provide the capacity building of specialists working in service provision for persons with disability. As well, we have established 4 local networks of actors and stakeholders working with or for persons with disability in the city of Duros, Vlora, Kukos, and in Tirana is in process, with the aim of that all the issues and to integrate all the resources in the local level for people with disability and the services that might be of need. Also recently we have worked for independent living, that we have drafted a model of independent living for persons with disabilities, which is submitted to the Ministry of Health and Social Protection and to the municipality of Tirana. This model is piloted with 10 adults at our premises with the financial support of UNDP. We are waiting to draft the standards of independent living in cooperation with the Ministry of Health and Social Protection. Also, in frame of this program, we have established 4 self-advocates groups of young people with intellectual disabilities in Tirana, Libraj, Fier, and Shkodër. So this is a tableau of what our organization mainly operates in Albania, besides all the efforts for advocacy and lobbying for the rights of disability in Albania, which these actions are taken in cooperation with all the organizations and service providers in Albania that work in this field. Down we will continue with the topic of today, the Early Child Intervention Program. Emanuela, you have shared can you help me, please?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
No,
Egla, please continue. I have shared the presentation. Do everybody
Yes,
sees the presentation?
You have to go down at the next page.
Okay. Egla, we are at that's a definition in Albania.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to continue or?
Yes, you have to go down with the presentation because you are sharing it at the beginning.
But sorry, you finished your slides and now we are at that's a definition in Albania, right?
Yeah.
Can you go as per your slide because my slides is okay, I think, being shared, no? Sorry for the technical issues,
but
please start reading from your slide so I understand where do you want me to be.
Okay, I will go in my slides then. At the ECI definition in Albania, based on the Article 14 of social service law in Albania, which makes this the definition for early child intervention, which are individual social services offered in family social service centers or in educational institutions and consist in simulative and professional help for children up to 8 years old, assistive counseling for parents, other members of family for the purpose of integration of the child in society. In Albania, the early child intervention is offered in family, in center of educational and institutions, early child institutions. It is offered up to 8 years old, is a professional help, and the families are the most important part of this process. We will go down and the early child intervention in practice in Albania, how it is provided. As I mentioned at my first presentation for Health and Life Association, that it is provided mostly by organizations that work in the field of service provision for people with disability, and it's not based on a program or a structure that is provided by or it's officially known by the Ministry of Health. So there are all small numbers of services which are delivered in families by organizations, by NGOs. Small number of services which are delivered in educational institutions. More than 98% of early child intervention are delivered in center, which are center-based, and a small number of professionals are trained on this kind of methodology. How and where this is provided for children from 0 to 8 years old is provided by freelance and unlicensed professionals in their private apartments or by visiting the child at home, which we will mention on the next slide. That is one of the challenges that we are facing in Albania in the frame of this program. Are provided in NGO centers or other private centers. Only a small number.
Sorry, 1 minute left.
Centers, or no official data for the number of children with disabilities. I will go down with the challenges of implementing the early child services in Albania. The government has not yet calculated and agreed on the costing of the services and the reference system prices. There is only one public center in Albania, which is based in Tirana, for the assessment and the treatment of the children at an early age. Children from outside Tirana come periodically and sleep here for 2 weeks to get the service. There is a lack of awareness campaigns on early detection and intervention for children from 0 to 8 years old. There is a lack of information in understanding how early child intervention should be provided and as a service model. There is lack of official data on the number of children assessed and treated by all the organizations. There is lack of model, as I mentioned during all the presentation, and curricula for professionals to provide early child intervention program. And also, which is very important, that we are facing, one of the challenges is the stigma of the parents in accepting the disability of the child at an early age, and referring and including the child on the supportive system. So that's why it's a number of children that they are left out the early child intervention program. So I will give the floor now. This was for my side, the presentation. I'll give the floor to Emanuela, which will represent the I have an overview of Down syndrome Albania, and then we'll present the next part of our presentation, joint presentation.
Vasilika, we don't have more minutes, right?
No, one. This is overtime. It is 1 minute for you.
Okay, so I'm skipping presentation of Down syndrome Albania another time. So we have funding problems and budgeting related to the non-functional small social fund, which needs to be distributed from the local governments in Albania. The budget is really small for the social services. Funds there are for multiple target groups in one. So not divided in specific types of services, and all of this is grant-based and not sustainable in long-term funding system. So so services beside those of the local governments from the NGO sectors are not supported at all from the government. What we are recommending is that to speed up the reform on disability assessment and make it to work all over the country, because it's been piloting only in Tirana, fill any legal gap that is still there, but most importantly, create an identification and coordination system for ETSI, starting with assessment, diagnosis, referral, and service provision. Funding, it's always important, and to make it work, even the social fund that we have in the law, it's not working, has not been distributed yet. Standards are very important, so everybody knows how to implement early intervention services and other child services. These social plans of the local governments are not yet working, so this is another problem. Sometimes they are drafted but not approved from the council at the municipality. Capacity building is always important in this aspect, and incorporate ETSI as a service in preschool and education system, and of course supporting our existing services and as NGO service providers. Statistics are always a problem, and we still are not on the focus. People with disabilities are not on the focus of the agenda. Yeah, monitoring system is also an important thing that we suggest it should be undertaken, and increase awareness among government institutions, among public opinion, among family members on the importance of ETSI. And meanwhile, we would like to emphasize that EU funding for Albania in terms of social care services is not enough, and it's really few.
Okay.
And this is, thank you.
Thank you, Emanuela. Thank you, Mirela. Unfortunately, because of technicality, you lose few minutes, which is very important on those meetings. Now we have to move on the another neighbor country for us. It is Kosovo. Welcome to Ermira Shabani from Down Syndrome Kosovo.
Hello. Okay. 1 minute. Let's share the screen.
You can start with your presentation, Ermira.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ermira, and I'm here with Medina, my colleague. And we are going to, first of all, it's a pleasure to be part of this this meeting. And we are going to talk about, explain what Down Syndrome Kosovo is doing for social services, especially for early intervention, and how is the situation in general in Kosovo. Down Syndrome Kosovo is an association founded by parents of children with Down syndrome since 2007. And supports people with Down syndrome and their families through the advocacy for the rights of people with Down syndrome, lobbying, legal consultation and support, provision of therapeutic services. Actually, the organization is working mainly through 2 programs regarding the services. Is the early intervention and education program and the program for autonomy and vocational training. The organization works at national level regarding the advocacy and lobbying, and we work about the provision of services. We work only in 4 centers in 4 municipalities, where we provide the services for children and also adults with Down syndrome within these 2 programs. The early intervention education program of the organization is a program where we provide information and consultation about the healthcare, and we provide the therapeutic services about children with Down syndrome in the field of physical therapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, psychoeducation for parents of children with Down syndrome. We also work a lot about the inclusive education of children with Down syndrome and regular education system by facilitating the inclusion process and by providing trainings for the educator, teachers, and other stakeholders. Regarding the program for autonomy and vocational training, we have within this program we provide services for personal and social autonomy and vocational training. The last one, we do it through workshops that are within the centers of our organization. Like, for example, the workshop of candle, of postcards, and all this is done to improve the skills for job market of adults with Down syndrome. I'm going to talk about legislation and how is the situation of services in general of people with disability in Kosovo. Unfortunately, we are facing a lot of problems. I mean, now this year we have also the pandemic situation, and this is making worse all the ongoing of our activities and of the provision of services. In general, in Kosovo, the legislation for people for disability, for social services, is not regulated. We have current laws which are kind of exclusionary for different types of disability, but for some types of disability give benefits compared to other types of the disability. Seeing this, our organization has proposed to draft a new law, which is an inclusive law for all the types of, for all the disability, and based on that law to structure the classification of disability in Kosovo, and also the services needed for each type of disability here in Kosovo, and how all the state mechanism and institutions should work in order to provide the services. We are in the process in drafting this law. The good news is that the Parliament of Kosovo approved the first draft, and now we are finalizing this draft. Then we are reviewing other laws, like for example, we have a social service law, which is it's a law that actually doesn't point out a lot the services for people with disability. Then Kosovo is in the process of decentralization of social services from central level to local level. This is a process that started at 2009, but actually it takes a lot. And the main problem of all this process are the fundings. And this is making it difficult to work. Regarding the early childhood services in Kosovo, we do not have, as I mentioned, we are still working on the legislation to regulate all the services for people with disability, and consequently also the services for early childhood. We do not have a law which regulates this, and the services.
1 minute left.
Okay, and the services aren't for early childhood aren't structured. I mean, by the state, there are different organizations as ours which provides services for early childhood, but these services aren't regulated based on a specific law. And I mean, all this is connected also with the part of education, which makes it more still it's another component which needs to be addressed by the state institutions. Okay, that's all from by our side. Thank you very much for your attention. Can you turn on your microphone?
Sorry. Thank you for your presentation. Now we are moving to Georgia. Marie is from Georgia, is the next on the agenda. So please take the floor, Marie.
Thank you, my dear friends. Before I will start my presentation, I want to share my thought, what I guess right now, that it's it's not necessary. You are a fully member of European Union or from neighbor countries. You as an service provider, all of us, we have same problems. It's not just about COVID, not about political issues, as a service provider as well. So now I can continue my presentation. My organization, name of my organization is Society Biligi. We are a regional organization. So we started work from 1997 and right now our general priorities is childcare, community development, civic education promotion, and volunteerism promotion. Our biggest program is childcare program, and we developed different projects for our beneficiaries from very vulnerable families, for children who are under the state care, why I am with you. This is early intervention program for children from 0 to 7. For these children, we about 4 years we already have Child and Youth Development Center. Aim of this center is to help children from 0 to 7 with developmental or under-risk problem to be involved in society, try help them in developmental process, try to them in educational, and also support their families. Right now, we have developed this activity in this center. This is services for children in family-based, in natural surrounding, providing individual and group work for our beneficiaries. We have a training center for our beneficiaries' parents and parents club. Now, what is going all over the Georgia with the service providers? I divide this in 3 parts. So, on organizational level, I collect the problems what all providers are facing. So, we also have prepared less numbers of specialists, especially this is problem in a region. We are facing a finances problem as well. We have a small centralized financing, limited sources, not giving us possibility to support specialists who are already work with us. And when we are serving beneficiaries, there is one problem: we cannot able cover transportation cost of specialists, especially who are working in municipalities, in beneficiaries who are from villages, far from our municipality centers. So this is big challenge for us. Because of limited resources, staff train is very often situation for all providers. And preparation of staff and ongoing on-job training is also very problematic of all organization. Less interest of donors, obstacles to find partners on local or in international level, and our wish that our local municipalities started to be very active to co-finance or have a co-finance program for providers who are working locally on municipality levels, and less information about international exchange programs and workshops, less information about sharing professional issues on international and local level. So, providers level, unhealthy competition. We are still on this level, and all the providers inside keeps their success. So we cannot like platform to share the experience between us. We have not in Georgia certified on bachelor degree programs to prepare specialists. This is good that we have early childhood association, but they have a for new specialist preparing a special course. This is paid trainings. If we will calculate this in euro, this will be very small money, but really in Georgia, not so good situation, and many people, many specialists cannot pay this money as well. So for point of view from local and central government level, preschool are not ready, not prepared to provide full service and for full involvement of children with developmental problems. So this means that qualification of staff who are working in preschool, not adopted environment for children, and also they are lack of resources for children what it needs needed in a developmental process. Low interest of medical institution to collaborate with providers. We still have many problems about this, because they should like send us children, so give us information about children problems. And this is, I do not know how in your countries, but we as a service providers are connected to the voucher financing, and government giving
1 minute left.
Okay, so I can. So I wanted to show you what challenges we face about COVID. So about pandemic period, government reduced our finances, and we just received 70% from awesome challenges while we are worked online. Beneficiaries low access to internet and technical issues, and while we're working in high risk families, it was problem working with protective items and COVID tests. State does not finance and providers cannot afford it. What we are thinking as a purpose solution: help to find partners, an opportunity to share, exchange information, knowledge, joint work, and accessibility to fund sources. And one more slide, it's on this map, we try to show you how much providers are spread all over the Georgia. So in Tbilisi is working 10 organizations, and one per one in other regions. So here is Shida Kartli, where we are allocated as an organization. So this was my presentation. Thank you very much. And I will wait your questions.
Thank you very much, Marie. So we had very nice, interesting 3 presentations related early childhood interventions from 3 countries. I would like to apologize to Eglantina. I missed the name. Eglantina from Down syndrome Albania. So Albania, thank you for your presentation. Kosovo, thank you for your presentation. Georgia, thank you for your presentation and your time and effort that you put today and share with us. Now we are moving to another point, another topic of our agenda. It is inclusive education and educational support services. It is also an interesting topic, and now we are moving to Turkey. No, Armenia, sorry. Susanna from Armenia. Susanna?
Mute the mic.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to meet everyone and also Marie from Georgia, because our organizations are also together in another network, Caucasus Network for Children, struggling for inclusive education for children in South Caucasus. So, let me start my presentation. In a very short period of time, I will provide you with a brief information about our organization, the state of inclusive education in Armenia, achievements, key challenges, and trends in provision of services at all levels of education in the line with the CRPD Article 24 and the Human Rights Indicator developed by the Human Rights Committee on CRPD as a guide to support the authorities and service providers to promote disability inclusive system of education in their countries. Thus, Bridge of Hope was established in 1996 by a group of parents of children with disabilities and devoted individuals from different sectors. And about 5 years, the NGO, together with families of children with disabilities, youth with disabilities, builds bridges between mindsets, practices, policies to eliminate the barriers that still exist in between people, and also to strengthen the acceptance of persons with disabilities as right holders in our country. So if we go back to 25 years, we will see a situation in which people used to live in isolation at their homes, institutions, in special schools. And on the other hand, we had a society without disabilities, that's to say, that considered exclusion of persons with disabilities as a norm in our society, and providing them with care and treatment in isolated environments, and also corrected them through deficit-based education. Hence, this was the situation when Bridge of Hope was established to bridge mindsets, hands and hearts of all members of our society. So to fill in the gaps within the society through inclusion, through the respect for the human rights and dignity of persons with disabilities, and through the joint movement to create equal access to education, employment, and independent life for people with disabilities. So this was very short, brief information about our organization. Thus, with leading role of Bridge of Hope and its devoted parent advocates, inclusive education was launched in Armenia in 2000. And we consider the strength of our movement towards disability inclusive education in our country is the bottom-up approach that has given strong voice to families of children with disabilities, to persons with disabilities as right holders in our country. Thus, in 2000, we initiated the first pilot together with the Ministry of Education in 5 schools, and already after 5 years there was a certain knowledge and belief accumulated that brought our government to adopt an inclusive education policy. A law was adopted about education of persons needing special requirements in education, and it has stated inclusive education as a state policy relevant to that acceptance and understanding that we had for that time. And during the development of inclusive education from 2005-2014, there was already another understanding that inclusion is for, if we want real inclusion for persons with disabilities, and we have to consider the whole system to become inclusive. And hence, we started to make the Armenian legislation to be inclusive for all children. And 2014, the year of 2014 is marked as the year that Armenia has adopted universal inclusive system of education as a state policy. And according to the law, the Republic of Armenia declares inclusive education as a guarantee to ensure the right to education for every child. And inclusive education is defined as ensuring maximum participation in educational processes and performance under the state mainstream curricula, by providing conditions and adapted environment to every child, including those with disabilities. And it was our biggest achievement that just gave our start to towards total inclusive system of education. And already now, in Armenia, universal inclusive education system is applied in 9 provinces at about 1,242 secondary schools, and only 2 provinces are left with 160 schools that are planned to be applied in 2001. And in 2022, the whole system of mainstream education of Armenia with 1,402 schools will become inclusive. The next achievement at this moment is that 16 special schools out of 23 are transformed into pedagogical psychological support services to inclusive education, and unfortunately there is no plan still for transformation of the remaining 6 special schools. And that by 2023, the whole preschool education system will become, with its preschools will become inclusive. And this is the situation in Armenia. And the first and the most important step is already done in the country to enhance full protection of the rights of education of persons with disabilities. This step is done by efforts of disability rights, civil society organizations, DPOs, donors, authorities. And Bridge of Hope is proud to be the driving force of this movement, and for this big contribution, the organization has been awarded UNESCO's International Prize in 2014. With
1 minute left.
Okay, with this main achievements, we still have faced challenges of medical model of disability that is still dominating in our policies and practices, unfortunately. And lack of disaggregated data of disability, only we will see just diseases, etc., but no data about the right of people with disabilities that are implemented by, and lack of accessibility standards of all educational environments and materials. And we go back to the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, and the trend relevant to the Convention is the human rights-based approach that we, as a service providers, have to demonstrate when dealing with inclusive education. So for the full development of human potential and sense of dignity and self-worth, enabling persons with disabilities to participate effectively in the society. And for this purpose, the committee has developed a set of indicators to help us. And one set of indicators is for promotion of inclusive system of education. which means that all levels of education should become inclusive and ensure inclusive education for all students, including those with disabilities, and that the state has to have clear definition of inclusive education reinforced by its laws and in the line with CRPD, and also prohibit the discrimination on the basis of disability. The next is the quality of free and primary secondary education, that the states have to have a specific plan for transforming the whole system into inclusive system of education with clear targets, benchmarks, and timeframes. And that national curriculum should incorporate inclusive education standards, so to be able to for modifications, adaptations of the curriculum to every learner, including learners with disabilities. And access to tertiary educational training and lifelong learning is another challenge that, again, the set of indicators calls the government to meet the standards and, again, develop plans. And I'm finishing. And the lastly, which is very, very important, it is inclusive teaching, that it should become mandatory in all pre and in-service training and education for all practicing and future teachers. And that these courses should include also inclusive education pedagogy, human rights-based approach to disability, accessibility of classroom and the school environment, provision of reasonable accommodations. And lastly,
thank you very much for your presentation. Unfortunately, we have to move.
Basilka, I'm just finishing. It's just half a minute that we really think that EASPD as a stronger network can become bridge between Eastern and the Western countries of the Europe, and also to through joint projects to fill in the gaps that still exist in European Union and countries of Eastern Partnership, including Armenia, and we really expect that this kind of joint project contributions so to enhance the inclusion of persons with disabilities in our region in the line with UNCRPD. And this is the right momentum when the world is going towards sustainable development goals, and we have to think how to bridge CRPD with this development process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, we all have limited time, so please respect the time that you have for your presentation. Now we are moving to Turkey. Ekin, please take a floor.
Sorry.
Ekin, Turkey.
I'm trying to share my screen, but I don't think, can Adriana share on my behalf? Because it isn't allowing me to. Sorry. I think I managed it, right? Yes. Hi, sorry about the delay. I am Ekin. I'm from Turkey, from Tohum Autism Foundation. Our foundation was established in 2003 to provide a framework for people with autism to lead respected, independent, and valued lives. As you can see, our foundation is active in many areas, but when it comes to the educational services we provide, the first and the main structure is our special education school. This program started in 2006 as Turkey's disseminating branch of Princeton Child Development Institute, and Tohum's whole program and curricula is founded upon PCDI's methodology. Our school is a formal institution that is within the Ministry of Education system. And our school constitutes actually a model school for Turkey with at least 30 hours of intensive education, 11 months a year, a ratio of 1.5 teachers per student, and mandatory family training. And when the other branch of educational services we provide is our assistance program we provide for students with autism. They receive one-on-one and individualized sessions 2 or 3 times a week, and we have 120 students in this program. And lastly, we provide free of charge guidance and counseling services for parents of children with autism, and we provide them with educational assessments and a roadmap continuing their diagnoses. And now that I'm done with Tohum, I'm going to move on to the key challenges we face in inclusive education. And the first one is a very foundational one. It is the lack of data, lack of full and reliable data, which makes us impossible to see the full picture. We are told that the official number of people with disabilities who are in school in some capacity is 338,000, but we do not know the schooling rate, and we do not know the total number of people with disabilities in Turkey. And this causes people who aren't in school to become fully invisible and fall into the cracks in the system. The second set of challenges arise from the problems in access to education. Firstly, the inability to enroll in private schools. Private schools are very commonplace and almost in every neighborhood, but they are free to deny education to people with disabilities, and they do so without any repercussions from the state. On the public school front, students with disabilities are prevented from enrolling in school because of the biases of the other families, administrators, and teachers, despite the fact that education being a constitutional right. And in very many cases, even if people are officially enrolled, they get bullied out of the public school system. And lastly, the accessibility problems themselves, the lack of application of appropriate building codes, and the inadequacy of accessible learning materials. The third challenge constitutes a bevy of problems that are signified in the drop in post-secondary education rates in inclusive education. As you can see here, there's a drop of more than 60% of students who move on to the high school level in the inclusive education system. This means that more than half of the students either drop out or move into the segregated education school, special education schools. And the root causes for that is teachers lacking the necessary training, shortage of special education teachers themselves, lack of proper curricula, and lack of support personnel. The last challenge we face comes from these special education and rehabilitation centers that are privatized educational support services. These centers are conceived as additional support providers, and they operate under the assumption that children and young people get their necessary education from their schools, and these are just extra hours. And the state pays for 12 sessions a month, and last year the Turkish government spent 1.9 billion Turkish liras on them. But unfortunately, the quality of education ranges wildly, and more often than not, the quality is dismal. And despite the situation, the centers still get paid at the end of the day. And now that I've listed the challenges, I'm gonna talk about some of the solutions we're proposing. And this is a national solution for our national problem. It is the implementation of the National Action Plan for People with Autism. This plan's implementation and its reification would solve a great part of the educational problems in Turkey, not just for people with autism, but all disability groups, because the plan covers all legislative bases and directly identifies the responsible agencies. So if this plan were to be realized, administrative issues like school principals misusing their power and obstructing education would disappear. And these four are also our national proposals. The first one is the end of the quick method of special education teacher cultivation. We want the creation of properly educated educators, and additionally, we want solid and specialized and obligatory training for active teachers. Secondly, the provision of appropriate and accessible curricula and materials and development of properly accessible learning environments. Thirdly, very strict regulation of special education and rehabilitation centers I've mentioned. And lastly, proper, methodical, and sustainable data collection and development of a publicly available database that we can access. These three solutions are aimed at EASPD and the EU.
1 minute.
For EAS, this is the last one. Continued inclusion of non-EU members in future projects and development of partnership platforms. For EU, continuation of the UN CRPD process, which promotes a sense of accountability for the government and support of the CSOs to present shadow reports, and continuation of the funding programs like the IPA, and which disability CSOs make use of greatly. So our hope is that in time, all students will be in inclusive education, and model schools like ours will be transitional educational services, and every student gets integrated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ekin. Thank you to both presenters, Susanna from Armenia and Ekin from Turkey, to presentation of current situation in the inclusive education and educational support services in various countries. Now we are moving to another topic, but we are still in Turkey. We are moving to supported employment, and I'm giving floor to Demet from Turkey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to this event and organizing to this event. I'm so happy to be here today. Let me share my presentation with you, and I think it's seen by you. Is it okay?
Okay.
Perfect. So, yeah. I'm Mehmet Gülaldı and working at the Kadıköy municipality. And in my presentation, I'm going to give you a brief information about the Kadıköy municipality and the employment issue in Turkey concerning people with disabilities. And also, I'm going to give you some project that is implemented recently, mainly focusing on supported employment. And also, finally, I'm going to talk about the relationship between Turkey and the European Union. So, Kadıköy is a historic and residential and commercial district in the Asian side of Istanbul, which is the most beautiful city in the world. The district has 21 neighborhoods with various socio-economic and socio-cultural level. The population is nearly 500,000. In Turkey, in our country, the governing structure is central administration and the decentralization. In terms of the central administrative structure, Turkey is divided into provinces, which are further divided into lower levels of administrative districts. Nationwide institutions of ministries are called provincial organizations. The provincial organizations constitute provincial and county administrations, and all administrations have administrations at provinces. Metropolitan municipalities and the district municipalities are the main body to implement regulations and they provide services to the citizens in the city and the district level. Kadıköy municipality, where I work at, provides services for disadvantaged groups such as vulnerable children, women who are in the violence, and elderly people, refugees, and people also with disabilities. We ensure the services of psychological counseling, social and economic support, accessible transportation, special education, vocational training, and job counseling through social service centers. We have 6 social service centers in the municipality, and it's spread out the districts, so people can get a different variety of services from these centers. The employment unit is also established in the municipality. It's established in 2005. The main goal of the unit is to support people with disabilities who are looking for a job and consulting the companies who is looking for employee. So people can come to the our social service center if they are looking for a job, so we can find the best matches job for them, and then we introduce them to the company, so we can work for them the process in the job placement. Employment in Turkey. In our country, the basis of employment policies for people with disabilities is based on the quota system. With the quota system, it has brought various obligations and incentives to public and the private sector. Private sector companies employing, if they have 50 or more workers, they are obliged to employ 3% people with disabilities. This rate is 4% for the public sector. This is the obligation for the employer. Yes. The employment process of persons with disabilities is followed by the Ministry of Family, Labor, and the Social Services. In our country, sorry, I think yes, no. Let me just. In our country, we have 4 different types of employment models that are implementing. The first one is the sheltered workplace. The government and the local municipalities established the sheltered workplace and running them. And the second one is the employment and public service. If the people with disabilities want to get a position in the public organization, they have to take an examination, which is called public personnel selection examination. And it is specifically designed for the persons with disabilities. And it was organized firstly in 2011 and issues in every 2 years now. And the data of the 2011 shown that the number of almost 55,000 people with disabilities employed as a civil servant. And another model is the cooperative society, entrepreneurships, and also the individual business. But speaking, the rate of employment people with disabilities has not reached the desired level. So just give you the rate of the employment, it's not enough, I think. The supported employment has not yet taken, I think, its place in the country's legislation and regulations. It has been applied as a method or project by the different public institutions and non-governmental organizations through national and international projects since the year of 2005. This year is the turning point, so I'm going to tell you later. So we have different projects which are granted by government and the EU budget. So I will tell you some of them now. The first one is the running by the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Policy. It is called Join Work, Join Life. The project, almost 900 people with disabilities were placed in the open market, labor market, and they were supported by the job coaches. The job coaches model is very new in the country, and in this project also 70 job coaches are trained. And the second example of the project, which is implemented by the Down Syndrome Association, it's called I'm Independent Because I Work. And this was the very successful project. Within this project, qualified almost 90 individuals with Down syndrome was employed in the open labor market. And another sample of the projects that it's called I'm Here.
Sorry, 1 minute left.
No, really? Okay. And the autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disabled people were placed into the labor market. And the other project also. So let me jump to the, yes, some challenges. We have a lot of challenges. Just mentioned, my colleague has mentioned in the education area. It's the same also in the employment area. The lack of knowledge and the low qualified personnel and the inaccessibility. And we don't have a job coaching program and the rules also. And if they get the job for people with disabilities, they can lose disability benefits that they can get from the government. And also there's an approach that it's not the human rights, it's just a project or charity. It must be changed, this approach. So these are the main challenges. Actually, we have a lot of challenges. So
okay.
we have
to finish.
Okay, so let me just tell you what we need. We need the partnership with EU countries also, and we need to increase the budget and actively involved in the policy process and sharing knowledge and learn each other also. This is very important to create awareness of the benefits of disability employment. We don't have very sufficient data collection. We really need it. And also it's very important for me, the honesty in the practice level. We have lots of regulations, laws, but in the practice level, it has changed sometimes. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and all your efforts. Now it is time to move to Moldova. Lyudmila, please take your floor.
Hi everybody. I don't know if you can see my slides.
We can.
Okay. Just, oh my God. Okay. I would like to speak a little bit about the employment of persons with disabilities in Moldova, like trends and key challenges. And first of all, I would like to give you some small information on Keystone Moldova. We are operating in the country for more than 15 years, and the main mission of Keystone Moldova is social inclusion of persons with developmental disabilities. During all these 15 years of activities, we supported the government to move the reforms in the field of social protection of persons with disabilities through the deinstitutionalization process, through the improvement of legal framework, and through developing of community-based social care services. And you can see from this slide that we supported the government to develop more than 160 community-based services for implementation of the Article 19 of the UNCRPD. I would like also to say that all those years we advocated jointly with other NGOs for labor inclusion of persons with disabilities through development and promotion of best practices, monitoring and implementation of labor legislation, and strengthening the capacities of self-advocates. And here on all my slides, you can see pictures with messages that are part of the last advocacy campaign, Work Without Borders, that was implemented by Keystone Moldova. Okay, next one. Keystone Moldova is implementing the following model of supported employment, like support and job coaching to mainstream persons with disabilities in open labor market, social enterprise, and small income generating activities. Talking about the support and job coaching to mainstream persons with disabilities in open labor market, I think like all my colleagues from other countries, we are supporting and referring persons to vocational training, supporting in job identification, job matching, preparing inclusive working environment, and we are supporting the persons with money management support, because all those persons that we are supporting have been deinstitutionalized from residential institutions. Up to now, we supported 24 persons with disabilities to be employed. The social enterprise EcoVox group has twofold their objectives. First of all, economic empowerment of persons with disabilities and reducing use of plastic bags. This is a home-based office, individual training, job coaching based on needs models. We have in social enterprise like 10 persons with disabilities from rural areas employed. They receive salaries and they pay taxes. And also we have some various marketing plans with sales, including through the internet. Talking about the income generating activities, we support persons with disabilities to develop some business plans. We train and job coaching them in development of the income generating activities. You see some types of these income generating activities on the screen, and particularly this type of support of service was developed as part of supported living services or in case of family reintegration. On this slide, you can see the strengths and challenges for labor inclusion in Moldova. First of all, I would like to say that due to advocacy of NGOs and particularly alliance of NGOs in disability field, we obtained many positive changes in the legislation. And these positive changes you can see on the left side like strengths. However, still the employment rate of persons with disabilities in Moldova is like 1.6 times less than the employment rate of general population. And in this regards, the main challenges are undeveloped mechanisms for implementation of the legal framework in employment, limited number of support services and lack of budgets for development of support services. Still, the NGOs in Moldova do not have the right and possibility to be social subcontracted by the government for support for assistive employment. We have low level of information of persons with disabilities on their right to work, limited access to rehabilitation services and to vocational education, and this is a trend, I think, in all our countries. And we also have like uneducated employees with limited knowledge and high level of fear regarding the employment of persons with disabilities. And the last one slide is the agenda for improving labor inclusion of persons with disabilities. And in this regards, we do think that we need to develop to have a real mechanism for policy implementation, inclusive vocational education implemented throughout the country. We need to have more budget for support services for labor inclusion. We need to have capacity building programs for all stakeholders, participatory mechanisms for better involvement of persons with disabilities in monitoring their labor inclusion process. We need to have like more networking with NGOs in the field of labor inclusion and monitoring process. And also, I would like to say that we need to have like more sharing best regional and European Union practices through the EASPDs, like national conferences, study visits, joint projects. Also, we hope to have like EU support for promotion of inclusive employment through political dialogue and funding mechanism at the level of our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ludmila, for your precise, sharp presentation, but full with information and details. You're really professional to keep your eye on timing.
Thank you very much.
Now we are moving back to Balkan. We are moving back to Balkan and we are starting with Serbia. Now we have two presentations on big reform process, the institutionalization and the independent living support services. I would like to ask Alexandra from Serbia to start a presentation and to keep an eye on timing. Please, Alexander.
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank to EASPD and Poraka for the invitation and opportunity to share our experience. The association, Halfway There, was founded in 2006, primarily for the purpose of providing house support living service. Our target group is children, young people, and adults with intellectual disabilities. Today, we provide service for 68 persons with intellectual disability in 2 municipalities. The service we provide are house support living since 2006, and we are licensed in 2014. Also home care service from 2014, and we provide both services on a project basis until the moment when the house support living became a mandatory part of the decision on social protection of the city of Pančevo. We also have a law which supports establishing social services. Home care services is still provided on project basis, but in the last 2 years, there has not been announcing local grants for this type of services in Pančevo. In the last few years, where little has been talk about services for persons with intellectual disabilities, because other target groups are in the focus or in the focus of interest of state and media. For example, the migrant crisis, all of you know, in Europe. Since we realized the house support living must include other forms of engaging PIDs, such as employment or at least work in shuttle workshops, we have established a work center where our users make late items and sell them. Also, we are trying to hire them in association to the state program for temporary employment of persons with intellectual disabilities. The whole preparation for the open labor market is carried out through the self-advocacy groups, and also through the self-advocacy group we inform a person with intellectual disabilities about social protection services because they often don't receive information and when they receive it through the media or from their parents, they don't understand what is offered. In the last 14 years, as long we provide services, we have faced many challenges. These are just some of the challenges. First of all, insufficient number of licensed service providers. Licensed professionals, trained support staff, accredited training programs. Currently, there are no accredited trainings for many services. Just a few local governments that financially support the services, because services are not part of the decision of social protection, and local governments don't want an obligation. We saw that on example of shutting down house support living service in Belgrade and Vlasotince, when after 15 years, 23 persons with intellectual disability were returned to the institution and no one even mentioned it. Lack of support from the Ministry of Social Protection for our beneficiaries undeveloped municipalities, but also for the development and improvement of service. European projects that financed in 2012 the institutionalization are stopped because the development of services was taken over by the government, but just declaratively, but not in practice. And there are also no official criteria for determining the price of service, except for a few services, for example, the home care service. We have some solutions which arise from these challenges. I think it's very important to educate a general public and professionals about social services, also promoting services through the national campaigns, empowering potential service providers, and creating a network of service providers. Also announcing local, national, and EU grants to encourage the initiative and development of services. Research assessment of community needs and introduction of services. Also really important is formation of database and etc. etc. In this short time, we have only touched some of the challenges, but I certainly believe that with gentle pressure, but constantly, we can develop services. We have been doing this all these years, and we want to stop to do pressure to our government and local and our local bosses, because they change all the time, and the policy is the same. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all for today.
Okay, Alexandra, thank you. It was very nice presentation. Now I would like to invite my colleague Vlado to share experiences from our country, from Macedonia, relating the process of deinstitutionalization and independent living support services. Vlado, please.
I believe you can all see my screen now, yeah? Okay. So in order to save time, I will start immediately with a short information about the organization that I work for. The Republic Center for Support of Persons with Intellectual Disability, PORACA, is the National Disability Association. It is a civil and non-profit organization that represents the rights of almost 20,000 persons with intellectual disability in our country. We are one of the leading service providers for persons with intellectual disability, and we have been established in 1963, so we have a long history, and today we unite 17 local branches and a network of social services. Our goals or areas of work are two, actually. So we deal with human rights, we act as an advocacy association, we are trying to improve the policies and the legal framework to ensure actually equal participation and inclusion of persons with intellectual disability in the society. And the second area or goal is to provide high quality community-based services for persons with intellectual disability in our country. Relating to the service provision, PORACA has been active since the start of the reform of deinstitutionalization in 2000, and we focus mainly on prevention of institutionalization and creation of community-based support services for our members. These past 20 years, we have established a network of 10-day centers for adolescents and adults with intellectual disabilities, which are actually providing support and training for independent living skills for our users. Within our local organizations, we are also providing social clubs and counseling services. These are form of research centers where we also support the families and the persons with intellectual disabilities. Since 2017, Poraka is very active. Have been participating in the creation and implementation of the new national DI strategy. And at the moment, currently, we are a project partner in one ongoing EU-funded project that deals with transformation of the biggest residential institution for people with intellectual disability in our country. A short review of the DI process, what happened before. The process started in 2000 with the creation of the first community-based services, but unfortunately the process was with many ups and downs. It was project-based, it was unstable, and it was unsustainable, I would say. It was characterized with a evident lack of support services and infrastructure. The existing services does not always follow the human rights approach, and their quality is questionable. And even more important, the personalized services, the real services that should support the independent living of persons with intellectual disabilities are still missing, still underdeveloped, or limited to some groups. One of the bigger and major developments happened in 2017 when the European Union delegation in our country supported the drafting of the new DI strategy. It is a comprehensive strategy for 10 years, 2018-2027. It has actually costed action plan. It was developed in a wide participatory manner, and it was built upon the EU guidelines on transition from institutional to community-based care and following the UN CRPD principles. We have four main pillars of this strategy. First, it is the transformation of the institutions, then resettlement of residents, development of community-based services, and prevention of institutionalization. But it covers a lot of other important complementary areas. A lot has been done, and we should be proud of in the past few years. But it could not have been done without the strong political will and commitment of the national authorities. DI has become a priority in the national social policy. The European Union delegation and the UN agencies in our country are strongly supporting the process. In 2017, the government announced a moratorium on new admissions, which is very important. I already said we have a good strategic framework, but we also have a good legal framework. In 2019, the new law for social protection was adopted, and also the accompanying bylaws that regulates the service provision. And with all this in place, we can see that government now has the clear vision and a clear intention to build the new social protection system in our country based on high quality services instead of social help or cash transfers to people with disabilities. And most importantly, I would say, in 2018, the government allocated a specific budget line for the institutionalization and support services for the first time ever in the national budget, and it is, of course, a good step. Another thing almost simultaneously happening with the other achievement is the introduction of the new person-centered approach and the case management model, which of course is very important if we want to have an adequate response to the needs of the users. All residential institutions has developed their transformational plans. This was supported by the UN agencies, and these agencies also supported rapid development of services, kind of a small group homes. We are calling them living with support units, but also more importantly, the service for personal assistance. Having this all done, I could say that it resulted in an effective implementation of the strategy, and we can be proud of what has been achieved, because in this period of 3 years, 2017-2019, the total number of residents in all institutions was decreased by 44%, and it is a good job done. More importantly, I would say we have no more children in institution. All 180 children that we have in institution living in different residential institutions were resettled into foster care and small group homes. And all this is good, but of course there are always challenges and always new perspective. The depending on the level of development of the process. First thing to do is to ensure effective transformation of institution. Then, to provide sustainability of the existing support services, especially the services that are provided by the NGO, the CSO sector. It is needed to upgrade and to improve their function because, as I said, sometimes the quality is questionable. Also, to continue with creation of new support services, but based on real needs assessment in order to cover the gaps that we have here in our system. And these are the services that we are missing: support at home, respite care, crisis center support for people with high intense needs, etc. And to further develop person-centered methodologies and to provide staff training, because these two are really crucial if we want to have high quality services. Another challenges, but these are on a more policy level, at national level, is to formulate, the government needs to formulate a regulatory mechanism and the quality standards, including monitoring procedures for all services. The partnership should be established between the CSO providers and the government, and I said this is crucial to have equal treatment of all service providers, and this will include, of course, sustainable funding for the CSO service providers. To support informal carers in order to prevent institutionalization and to further decrease the rate of institutionalization. We have a lower rate, probably the lowest in the region, because we have only few institutions, but this should be maintained. At the end, to strengthen decentralization as well as the role of the local self-government, because they have really important role, but they sometimes lack capacity. And I will finish, this is my last slide, with the importance of the international support. I already said the EU has been very supportive. It actually initiated, but also supported the drafting of the new strategy. At the moment, they are supporting big technical assistance project and 3 big resettlement projects for people with disabilities. The UN agencies supported the development of the policy, the tools, the expertise. They provided capacity building, but they also provided direct support for resettlement of users, which is very valuable. World Bank, there is an ongoing project for support of the municipality, a really big one, around 10 million euros for creation of community-based services on local level. And last but not least important, I would emphasize the role of EASPD as a crucial partner of the CSO providers, because we all have great benefits, I believe so, from the networking, from the sharing of know-how, from the sharing of innovative practices for improving of the quality of our own services, but also, and probably most importantly, to understand the changing role of us as service providers. And I will finish with this, that in challenging circumstances, as we have in our region, it is always good to know that you have a strong partner, that you have an influential network, European network, that is always by your side to back you up. Thank you for your attention. These are my contact details, and I hope you will have some answers for me.
Thank you, Vlado. That was the last presentation for today, but we have another session. Before we move forward with the next session, I would like to thank you to all of you. That all the speakers today on this regional forum of service providers. Thank you for sharing your experiences, positive and negative, and challenges. I'm from Macedonia, and I have to say that I'm proud with the results of reform process in the past few years, but we have to be aware that we should continue in the same direction with the reform, with the transformation of the institutions, and we have to make our governments aware about the importance of this process, about the importance of inclusion of people with disability and human rights of those people. So thank you again. Now we are moving to the next session on our agenda. I'm giving floor to Lux Deldera, the Secretary General of EASPD. I'm very glad that I'm very sharp with timing. So now, Luca, just take the floor and move on.
Thank you, Vasilka. And indeed, spot on, spot on. You are a very good moderator. You managed to keep everything within the given time framework, which is challenging with so many speakers. So congratulations. I also would like to thank Vlado for his nice and encouraging words on the work that we do as EASPD. And I also saw many very important and encouraging messages in the chat box. So thank you very much for all this, dear colleagues. It is indeed very important that we support each other. And I must say, on a very personal note, it feels so good to hear and to see you after such a long time. It would have been, of course, much nicer if we would have been in the same room, and if we would have been able to hug each other and maybe to go for a drink afterwards. In COVID-19 times, this is not possible. But still, I think it's the contact, it is the discussion, it is being together that pushes us forwards and that helps us to make together a difference for persons with support needs. And I will try to indeed moderate this second part of the program. And I'm very happy that we can have this discussion, because from the very beginning of EASPD, and that is 25 years ago, EASPD started looking outside the European Union, also to establish good cooperation with actors from these countries. For us, Europe is more than the European Union, so I'm very happy that we have so many representatives here with us of non-EU countries. And as you know, those that already took the time to look at the draft strategy, and we will further discuss it in the during the next General Assembly. We are working on a special chapter in the EASPD strategy on how we can strengthen the relations with actors like you, service providers from non-EU countries. What we had already this morning was great, I must say. We discussed 4 key types of services: early childhood intervention, education, employment, community living. Great work. It was great to hear all this useful information and to see how many models of good practice there are. I think that many of your colleagues from other countries and other parts of Europe, Western European countries, Scandinavian countries, can learn a lot also from the work that you do. So it is very good that you brought these messages in this event organized, or yes, indeed, set up with the strong support of Poraka and Vasilka Dimoska from North Macedonia. So thank you for doing that. So now let's turn to a more general approach, together with some members from Albania, Armenia, Moldova, North Macedonia, and Turkey. We worked on a report on disability services in these countries, needs and trends. And it is Ludmila from Moldova that will introduce the key challenges and recommendations that we collected thanks to this work. So Ludmila, you have the floor. Please share with us the key findings of this report. It should help us to better understand what is at stake in these countries, in non-EU countries. And then we will invite a representative of the European Commission of DG NEAR to also comment on these findings and explain also a bit how the European Commission and DG NEAR could support positive developments in these countries. Ludmila, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Luke. First of all, I would like to thank you, all my colleagues and friends, for the provision of big contribution for development of this report. I would like to say that the scope of this report was to analyze the trends and needs in social care services in 5 non-EU countries, and particularly Turkey, North Macedonia, Albania, Moldova, and Armenia. And we analyzed the following domains like early intervention, education, employment, social assistance, participation of persons with disabilities in decision-making processes, and also, let's say, the monitoring and evaluation mechanism of the implementation of UNCRPD. Despite of the fact that in our study we included many positive examples from various countries on implementation on all these 5 domains in the countries, and that have a big contribution for our further development. Due to limited time, I will focus just on key challenges and recommendations for each of the sector. Talking about the early childhood intervention, I would like to say that as per the country's reports, the level of coverage of family needs with early intervention services is still very low, and the services are practically inaccessible in rural areas and small towns. In many countries, there is no clear referral system established for children with disabilities, early ages, in needs for screening programs and social services. There is no clear reporting system on the level of coverage of children with disabilities with early intervention services and their level of progress. In some of the countries, the parents still have limited information on early intervention service provision that has a very negative impact on early detection of the children's health issues. The recommendations we come with are revision, development, implementation of comprehensive policies for promotion of early childhood intervention services in the region. The focus shall be made on accessible screening and prevention programs for children, including in remote areas, clear referral mechanisms, support services, and monitoring and reported system on level of coverage of children with services, as well as on their progress. And also, we need to increase the level of information of parents and families on early intervention services for their better access to existing services. Inclusive education domain. First of all, the report shows that children with disabilities still have limited access to mainstream schooling in the region. There are groups of children that are not fully covered by inclusive education, like children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, children with autism disorders, children with visual and hearing impairments. The existing support services for inclusive education are limited and do not cover all educational needs of children with various types of disabilities. The governments are allocating limited budgetary resources for support services in educational settings. The infrastructure of educational settings is insufficiently or at all adapted to children with disabilities needs. The curriculums are overloaded, inflexible, and not adjusted to individual educational requirements. There is no continuous teacher training in inclusive education, and many teachers still have limited knowledge and capacities to work with children with various types of disabilities. There is still undeveloped normative and methodological framework for implementation of inclusive education at yearly and vocational levels of education. And one of the biggest problems underlined by the reports is limited or no data on enrollment rate of children with various types of disabilities in schools. In all countries, we have children with special needs in schools, but not children with various types of disabilities in schools. This statistics is not available for these groups of children. The main recommendations with which we come are like development of comprehensive legal framework to recognize inclusive education in mainstream settings as a right for children with all types of disabilities, and development of clear mechanisms and inclusion of proper budgets for provision of accessible and adapted materials, inclusive curricula, and adequate individualized support and accommodations. Development and provision of qualitative, person-centered educational support services for increasing the access of children, youth with disabilities, including those with intellectual disabilities and girls at all levels of education. Integration of inclusive education training into university curricula for future teachers and mandatory training programs for current teaching staff with an adequate budget, and developing also clear mechanisms for collecting disaggregated data on both enrollment rate, level of individualized support and accommodation, and progress for inclusive education of all children with disabilities. In the field of support services for employment, The key challenges are as following. First of all, we identified that the employment rate of persons with disabilities is still more than twice less than the employment rate of general population working age in all countries. Persons with disabilities in some of the countries continue to be segregated and employed in sheltered workshops. There is still no real support services for employment of persons with disabilities in regular markets. The additional challenges for employment of persons with disabilities in the region are as following. Undeveloped mechanisms for implementation of inclusive legal framework, low level of awareness of persons with disabilities on their right to work, limited access of persons with disabilities to rehabilitation services and vocational education, inaccessible infrastructure, low level of self-esteem, and devaluation of persons with disabilities, and fear of employees to hire persons with disabilities. The main recommendations in this field are like as following. First of all, to integrate provisions regarding the employment of persons with disabilities in general employment policies. We do not need segregated policies just for persons with disabilities. We need to cover all types of persons with disabilities. Development, proper budgeting, and implementation of person-centered employment support services for persons with various types of disabilities, including those with intellectual disabilities, mental health, as well as women with disabilities. Promotion of employment of persons with disabilities, including women with disabilities, in public and private sectors in open labor market, in close consultations with persons with disabilities. Ensuring that persons with disabilities obtain productive and decent employment in line with the principle of equal pay for equal value. Collection of statistical data on employment rate of persons with disabilities disaggregated by sex, age, type of employment, salary, as well as on barriers to employment, and evidently monitoring jointly with persons with disabilities the implementation of the employment quota and collect data on compliance with the quota for provision of further sanctions in case of non-compliance. In case of social care services, you see here we found many challenges in the regions. That's why we used one slide for that. But I would like to say that the report shows that provision of qualitative social care services based on needs for persons with disabilities is still a challenge in the region. The national governments are not committed enough for the institutionalization of persons with disabilities, and the process is very slow in many countries. In some countries, there is no established clear moratorium on admission of persons with various types of disabilities in residential institutions. Some groups of people with disabilities, like persons with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, children with visual, hearing impairments, are like among the most frequently institutionalized groups of people. There is limited or at all access of those groups of people to community-based support services and to mainstream services. There is no policy and mechanism for coordination between national, regional, and local authorities, both within and across different sectors, for the development of community-based social care services in function of needs. The services are developed unevenly, disproportionate, mostly in big cities, districts, while in rural areas and small towns, their number is still very limited. The budget and financial sustainability of community-based services are still very low, while the greater financial resources continue to be distributed to institutional services. The quality of existing community-based services continue to be a concern within the conditions when many social services do not have operating regulations, quality standards, cannot be accredited, monitored, financed. The level of capacities of social services staff is still very low, and there is no appropriate training system for continuous education and training of service providers. The main recommendations for improving the access of persons with disabilities to community-based social care services are like following. First of all, developing, updating, revision of the institutionalization plans for persons with disabilities in each country with a clear time frame, benchmarks, and ensuring appropriate human, financial, and technical resources for its implementation. Establishing moratorium for entrances in all residential institutions, particularly in those for persons with developmental and psychosocial disabilities, sensorial impairments, as well as women. Development and implementation of clear mechanisms for redirecting financial resources from residential institutions to alternative community-based services. Integration of person-centered approach for development of services, as well as of social role valorization principles in the system of basic and continuous education of social workers in all 5 countries. Promotion, development, and provision of qualitative, accessible, affordable, community-based social care services to ensure that all persons with disabilities, independently of their gender, type of disability, age, place of residence, can exercise their right to live independently and be included in their communities. And also the major concern is collection of disaggregated statistical data on the access and quality of social care services provided for persons with disabilities. And the last but not the least, we came with some recommendations for strengthening EU support for community living for persons with disabilities in non-EU countries. First of all, we think that there is a need for inclusion of UNCRPD priorities in all partnership priorities, association agendas, country reports. Integration of disability rights approach and strategies of cooperation between EU and non-EU countries. The second, there is a need for using political dialogue for promotion and implementation of European pillar of social rights and UNCRPD, particularly the articles related to community living of persons with disabilities, educational and labor inclusion in all non-EU countries, in agreements, in stabilization and association agreements or association agreements. We need to use IENE and IPA funding instrument as an opportunity to mainstream more efficiently the deinstitutionalization and social inclusion of persons with disabilities in non-EU countries. There is a need for integration of disability priorities like deinstitutionalization, community living, inclusive employment, inclusive education in European Instrument for Democracy and Human Rights Objectives, as well as in thematic programs for non-EU countries. The important roles of CSUs should be recognized and financially supported in geographical instrument and thematic programs. The CSUs in non-EU countries shall be consulted not only on EU thematic programs related on strengthening the capacities of CSUs, but as well as of partnerships, but also in other thematic programs implemented by the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive overview and for summarizing the findings of this report. And as you might have seen in the chat box, in about 15 minutes, we will open up for discussion. And I would like to ask those countries that were not included in the report, and we have at least somebody from Kosovo, Georgia, and Serbia here with us to maybe come in with a very brief feedback on whether what was brought here as a summary of the key issues also works for their countries. So just to have that input as well. Now I would like to turn to the representative of the European Commission. I hope that you are with us.
Hello, Luke. Yes, I'm here, and thank you very much.
Hello, Bella. Nice to see you again. I can say Bella, yeah?
Yes, of course. I hope you don't mind either.
No problem at all. Bella Nestorova is working for DG NEAR, and she will share a few thoughts with us on this report and on the more general approach of DG NEAR in the countries concerned here today. Bella, you have the floor.
Thank you very much first for inviting me. Very interesting for me to hear about the challenges that you have identified and also recommendations both on policy and funding for the European Commission. I'm very happy to hear that you know about both our geographic and our thematic instruments. I'm pleasantly surprised, so you would know exactly what I'm talking about, and then of course I also look forward to our discussion. I have to say that as our year was overtaken by COVID, some of my presentation is taking into account the current COVID reality. Of course, there's all the other work that we do. That's why I put it in brackets. But I think that a lot of the working that we do now with civil society and people with disabilities is also taking this reality now. That's the first slide. So I'm going to very briefly talk about three things. The overall EU support in times of COVID to civil society, and then give some examples of our funding, first in the Eastern Partnership countries and then in the Western Balkan countries. So exactly on Team Europe response, we're working not in isolation. Of course, I sit in the European Commission, but we work very closely with EU member states and the European financing institutions to respond to COVID, and in particular to provide emergency assistance and humanitarian needs help in times of COVID, and then mitigate the economic and social impact of the pandemic. Here I have put the official language that includes vulnerable groups. I would not, where I have to say that in some documents, people with disabilities, you know, are being identified. This is something that I feel a little bit strongly about and I internally promote. I think that, you know, it's people with special needs, and this is the way that we try to look at it definitely in my team. So if we turn to the next slide, you're going to see that we have provided a lot of funding. I have to say that since I've worked in the Commission for the past 11 years or so, this is the quickest deployment of funding that's on this scale that I have ever seen. In the Eastern Partnership, we have a package of immediate needs of about 80 million. And then in the longer period, about close to 1 billion euro. And in the Western Balkans, also counting in the loans that are going to be given also to fight COVID, we have more than 3 billion. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that besides funding, what we try to do is cooperate with civil society and work together. So not only have these funding figures, but really turn the table around and have civil society as our partners who we closely work with. So last year we signed what we call framework partnership agreements with 7 organizations working at regional level in the Eastern Partnership, including IREX Europe, People in Need, the Europe-based, the Brussels-based part of the German Marshall Fund, and some other key organizations that work in these countries. And through them, we were able to very quickly channel 10 million in grants in times of COVID for capacity building activities, for awareness raising and countering disinformation. Here I'm speaking about geopolitical disinformation that I think that all of you are aware about, not only about health information. These partners also have IREX Europe and People in Need strong expertise in working on the rights of disabled persons. So this was also essential part of the contracts that we signed. I have to say that implementation has just started, but hopefully we can also quickly report on results. But in all the calls for proposals, I know that also disabled people were included, and hopefully are going to be very quickly assisted by these funds. Even we deployed funds even more quickly in many cases through what we call rapid response mechanism, where we have small grants to respond to unexpected changes, in this case, the COVID pandemic. And I just wanted to give 2 examples from the Eastern Partnership from Georgia and Moldova. Specifically a grant in Georgia to the Coalition for Independent Living, which supports people with disabilities, their families and their caregivers to get access to essential goods in times of COVID, to food, medicine, medical services, through the existing mobile outreach teams. And then also provides access to disability-specific information and advice in times of COVID. And the other example is in Moldova. It's implemented by organization Keystone Human Services, which provided protective equipment, masks, gloves, and so on for 6 residential institutions, thus reaching 1,700 people with disabilities. And also in these institutions, the organization will support the development of internal policies and prevention measures, and distribute mobile phones and give training to decrease cases of neglect and abuse, which are reported to increase also during the COVID pandemic. And the last example I'm going to give from this partnership is on the Erasmus program. Here I turn also to our young audience, definitely younger than me, unfortunately already, which supports education, training for youth and sport in Europe. Actually, Erasmus Plus has now been opened also to professionals. So actually, I think that now people of all ages are also eligible. And from this year, we're providing additional funding for participants with physical, mental, and health-related disabilities. What does this include? This means that if you're indeed chosen to participate in this exchange programs, on top of the costs, of the real costs associated with this exchange, that people with disabilities are eligible for additional costs for adapted accommodation, for travel assistance, for medical attendance, for supportive equipment, for adaptation of learning materials, and accompanying persons of students and staff with disabilities. And here I have put 2 websites where you can find a little bit more information on that, because I think that it's an important change of the policy of the EU that I hope that more people with disabilities can take advantage of. And also just to emphasize that our funding to youth is in all the programs that we have is open and to people with disabilities, and they're very much encouraged to apply. Now I'm going to turn to the second region in which we work, the Western Balkans and Turkey. And the special attention, which is also paid in times of COVID, that minorities, that victims of domestic violence, children, elderly, and people with disabilities are not left out from the COVID-19 response. The colleagues are have prepared a special 15 million regional package that focuses exclusively on supporting people most affected by the pandemic in the region and coping with the COVID-19 crisis. Here is a little bit more information about this 15 million program, which is not yet on the ground, but we expect it as soon as possible. It is to be implemented through the Red Cross, UNICEF, UN Women, and the Council of Europe, partnering with local CSOs. I emphasize this here, as we would like to reach also, as Ludmila mentioned, organizations and people with disabilities outside of capitals and really local grassroots organizations. And it will provide technical assistance to governments to provide responses which take into account the needs of the people most affected by the pandemic. And I also wanted to give some examples of the bilateral initiatives we have. In Kosovo, through the delegation, we provide support to all-inclusive society in line with the national strategy of the rights of people with disabilities until 2023. In North Macedonia, we're providing support for resettling persons with disabilities from the residential institutions to community-based living. And we're also providing 400 scholarships for children with disabilities in primary school. In Serbia, we're providing sustainable housing and active inclusion measures for most vulnerable, including persons with disabilities. And in Turkey, we provide inclusive education services to increase attendance of children with disabilities aged 3 to 7 to early childhood and first grade education. We're reaching about 32,000 children in 90 schools and 6 provinces. And I'm also definitely going to share with the colleagues that results that Ludmila shared from her study on how we can improve both our policies better and also programs such as the ones that I just mentioned. For any questions, of course, I'm here, and you can also reach me at my work email address, which is here. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you very much, Bella, for this very, very useful information on funding opportunities that that might be useful for our sector, for the actors in the different countries. I have two questions for you, and then we will explore whether others want to come in. Would it be possible to set up a sort of a project development workshop together with you and the different colleagues here to help them find the way through the system to better understand the different calls and the different instruments that you have introduced? Because of course people can find their own way through this, but sometimes it helps when you do it together with your services and maybe with you. Would that be possible? Would that be thinkable?
It would definitely be possible. I was talking about the challenges with COVID, but some of the positive things are, I think that we have gotten better at using Zoom as you do now, and connecting large groups of people over different countries. So please feel free that you and your colleagues follow up, and I can also organize people on our side. And I think it would be mostly useful also to do it with the delegations who also manage our bilateral funds. Yep. So definitely this is something we can follow up on, and we'll be glad to. Great, we will come back to you on that. And then my second question, Ludmila listed a few challenges and also a few expectations on how the European Union should act in these countries. As far as you know, is the UNCRPD, so the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with a Disability, on the agenda when you negotiate with the member states, with the authorities in the different countries? And is that also steering the approaches? Also, when you go into agreements, she mentioned the association agreements, but there are many contacts between the European Union and the public authorities in these countries. To which extent is the UN Convention and the European Pillar on Social Rights guiding these discussions? I have to say that we're in a little bit of a special year because we're going to do the programming for our next financing period. Yeah. So now is the time to, you know, in the current documents, they're really right now in the making. So that's why I was saying that I think that it's, I'm very happy to share your recommendations, and I think that what you're proposing is very reasonable and indeed the right way to go. But indeed, we have many different layers, if you want, of the way we work with the countries. We have the association agreements which have been signed, and they're publicly available. But we also have dialogue on human rights. I was very happy to see that you're also aware of the DHR financing instrument. So for instruments like this, for these thematic instruments, we're in the process of renovating our guidelines. So it is really the time that your recommendations now are very much relevant, and I mean that's why we're also here, and that's why we're. Great. I'm sure that the EASPD staff and all the colleagues. In the typo it says that they're irrelevant. No, maybe it's my English, which is not perfect. They're very much relevant. Well, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, well, we understood that, Bella. Yes, indeed. And I'm sure that the EASPD staff here in Brussels, but also the different colleagues, took note of what you just said. And we will explore avenues to maybe organize a help desk function or a project development workshops to help people to find their way through the different funding opportunities. Vasilka, a brief input from your side. What should EASPD do? Your first conclusions after the input from Ludmila and Bella, and then we open up. Vasilka, just 2 minutes. Is that okay for you?
Yes. So thank you for this opportunity. And as you know, I'm very glad that we have this event, unfortunately online, but however, it was very useful to hear in live presentations from different countries. And it is interesting, in one presentation I heard that EASPD is an agent of change, which is a good expression, which is really to the point. So as a EASPD, as an agent of change, we should use our friends to establish a new partnership. So the situation in the countries in this part of Europe is more or less the same. So all of us, we need different type of trainings. So we need capacity building. So we need to shift the approach. So we should understand that the human rights approach is the real approach to support people with disability. Person-centered approach to be approach that we will use in creation of our services, in our programs, on every field of support of persons with disability. So I think that this event is encouraging to start to think how to work together, especially with the last presentation of the lady from European Commission, showing us the financial possibilities that we can use to work together in some joint projects. So it is good to have ideas, but it is also encouraging when you have money to develop those ideas and to implement. So I'm really glad, and I really think that we should
continue the work.
Yes, how to make a bridge from this part of Europe to west part of Europe. On the end, I would like to thank to all participants in the report that Ludmila presented. It is really nice, comprehensive report, and it should be a starting point for some joint project or idea for partnership.
Great. Thank you very much, Fazilka. In the meantime, dear colleagues, you might have seen that in the chat box, you can find the link for the Erasmus program. And some people just informed us that it does not work for everybody, but we are looking into it. So we will provide the correct link. And there is also the link to the report on the EASPD website. So if you want to, because Ludmila could only go into some very general conclusions and recommendations, there is much more information in that report, and it is available on the EASPD website. So you can find it there. No, I see that the correct link is sent out by Adriana from the EASPD office. And of course, we will put it in the report of this event as well. Do we have requests or remarks? While you think about that, I will make a quick tour through some of the countries, and I would like to ask the different speakers to be very, very brief. I first would like to turn to Kosovo, to Elmira. Are you still with us? No, I don't see you. Okay. No. Can we then turn to Georgia? Mari? Nope.
Just I want to thank you to all of you, and what I heard and what I heard about assistance, it was not in Georgia, but anyway, problem and recommendation can be for Georgia as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I don't know whether Alexandra from Serbia is still with us. Yes, I see you. Can you, is most relevant issues covered by this report as it was presented by Ludmila, Alexandra? Maybe there is a connection problem. There she is, Alexandra. Do you recognize your sector and the issues at stake in your sector in the report that was presented by Ludmila? Your microphone is muted. And this, dear colleagues, is why it is so much nicer to have an in-person meeting. Then you don't have these technical problems. And then we can have a much easier communication. But Alexandra seems to have connection problems.
Especially in the sunny weather as it is today in Skopje.
Yeah, okay. Okay, do we have other questions or remarks, suggestions on how we can further fine-tune our cooperation from Brussels with you? And Emanuela would like to come in. Emanuela, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone again, and thank you all for the work today. One of the ideas that came in my mind now, seeing the recommendations of the report and the challenges, which while Ludmila was reading them and I was seeing them, I was thinking it's copy-paste from Albania, or is the situation, so it's pretty clear the same for all the countries. An idea would be that maybe as a network now, we could have like regular meetings weekly, no, not weekly, but like maybe once in 2 months, and we could discuss further and brainstorm on how could we push together forward that the situation improves. I was very, very happy to hear that it's the best time to have this report on EU level as they are working, and I'm sure that the EASPD will follow up on this. We can see from some countries the EU funding and EU support is, let's say, better or more intensive. But I would like to emphasize for countries where really EU funding has not been a priority for social care services. Right now, there is an important call which Albania can benefit from. It seems giving more priority to the local governments, but of course NGO sector can be there and benefit from it. Okay. So more examples like this should be on the funding, and I think more funds on actors like us would be more effective than only when distributed through governmental channels. We know the support that EU has given to Albania due to COVID, where social care is also there as a component. But unfortunately, up to now, there is no transparency and we have no idea how this money is going to be distributed. Yeah. So I would like to have more cooperation from EU on NGO levels of the region. Thank you, and yeah, next Good. Time all together face to face.
Thank you very much, Emanuela. And indeed, one of the important conclusions, I think, of this event might be that we have to organize it more often, so that we build more bridges and build more understanding of the issues and support each other in the in what is going on in our respective countries. In the meantime, you might have seen also in the chat box a little note from Alexandra saying that she has indeed internet connection problems, but she is glad that she had the opportunity to hear the report, and she expressed an agreement on the recommendations. Are there other colleagues that would like to come in?
Yeah, I would
Ludmila,
like to, yeah.
and then maybe somebody from Turkey to confirm whether this report is going in the right direction. Ludmila, please.
Okay. I have just a suggestion that maybe because like it was said by Bella, it is important time for developing these, you know, programmatic programs, new programs for our countries. Would be important to have some kind of joint strategy on how to work, you know, like in Brussels at the European Union level, and how to work with home offices in order that the people will understand that UNCRPD, you know, and it's important to include issues that we talked today in those thematic programs. For us, it was very difficult, for example, to implement many services through civil society program. We have had like 2 tasks. One, to develop grassroots CSOs in order that they will develop services to deinstitutionalize persons from institutions. That's a very indirect approach, you know. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And Adriana is with us. I'm sure that she already has in her agenda put that we have to organize another event soon, and maybe also this help desk to discuss project development. Yeah, we have more requests for the floor. Susanna, let's go to Armenia. Susanna, please.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ludmila, for merging all these reports. And it was really very good findings that you just have taken out from the report, and it is very useful for all of us. And as the last remark from my presentation, I would also like to call EU and EASPD, of course, to how to push disability and mainstream disability in development, because globally now, in the process of sustainable development goals, CRPD will never be implemented if not influenced in this process, and we will really need EASPD support. This is the right momentum, because in our countries, how to make disability as a human rights issue to be included in sustainable development program of our countries. In Armenia, at this moment, the process of nationalization is coming to it, just started, and from the next year, maybe implementation will start, and a lot of development cooperation to support the government. So in order to make the disability voice stronger as a human rights holders, so we will need really EASPD support, and together with you, how we can influence these development processes.
Okay, thank you, Susanna, for stressing that, and I will come to Ekin in a second. But I would like to combine a bit what Susanna said and what Emanuela said. There is a library full of studies proving that civil society organizations, not-for-profit service providers like you are more efficient and more effective than public agencies. That is not to blame public agencies, of course not, but quite often our type of organizations are closer to the reality and closer to the societal issues and challenges, and that is why most of us are more performant, less expensive and more effective. And we have a library of studies proving that. So that is an important message to all of us, I think. Ekin, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you. About the report, it almost gave us a sense of unity to see that the same problems, the medical approach, the situation of the care services, the non-existence of like early intervention, it gave me a sense of unity, but also I'm encouraged to read between the lines and like, read everything and find common points that we can come together and advocate on with the UN, or we can model solutions that we can borrow from our neighbors and develop together. So it needs like further attention, but as I've said, thank you very much. It's encouraging to see that we are all dealing with the same thing. We're in Turkey, we're not just lagging behind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ekin. Indeed, this sense of being together and having to face the same challenges and being able to support and help each other is so important. There is a request for the floor from Eglantina. Can you please take the floor? Yes, please. Very brief, because we have to wrap up.
Yes. Just briefly, because Emanuela and Susanna mentioned before the report was clear and everything, but in continuous of what Emanuela said in Albania, I would like also to draw the attention of EU and also the help with the support of EASPD to bring our concerns at EU, because in Albania we face a big problem with the continuity of the services. we as NGOs that we have services provided for since 22 years for children with disabilities, we suffer the sustainability, because even there is launched the IPA instrument for this year in Albania. There's no room, or there's no possibility for us NGOs to apply for the services that we are providing, for support for services that we are providing. And we have to suffer to go after the municipalities, asking for their support, but so we have some political problems, because they have their organizations, and they leave us, organization like us and Down Syndrome Albania and other service providers live outside the supporting scheme. So we can't apply on our own for funds. So we want to draw the attention of EU when they write the recommendations for Albania, or when they draft these instruments, financing instruments, to have in mind even these problems or challenges that we are facing, which are not evident from our country, but if they will talk directly with us, we can share with them all our challenges that we are facing really in the field.
Yeah, indeed, and that is why we have to work together and talk together to the European institutions. And that is why I also suggested to organize maybe a project development workshop or a help desk together with the European institutions. Then they much better understand the difficulties and the problems that we have to face when implementing this work. Dear colleagues, dear friends, we slowly have to bring this event to an end, but it is not an end. It is a new beginning. I think that if one thing is clear, then it is that we have to organize this more often, and we will do. We will do. I can promise you that EASPD is committed to develop an even better relation with service providers also outside of the European Union, and we will invest resources and staff time in it. So you can count on us. We will organize more of these events, and if somebody is willing to host the next one, this time we really have to thank Poraka, I think, and Vasilka and Vlado for pushing it. Thank you very much. Without you, we would not have had this. Yes, indeed, a little voice, soundless applause. It's very nice. Great. But thank you, Vasilka. Thank you, Vlado, for taking the lead on this and for bringing us together today. So one conclusion, we will do it more often. Second conclusion, we will try to set up a discussion with the European institutions to look at the different funding and funding opportunities and programs, to try to tackle what Eglantina also stressed so clearly in her message. And we will try to build on what Ekin said. It's very important. This feeling of being in the same boat together is so important. We can support each other. We can learn from one another. We can together find a way through all these issues. And those that have our EASPD president on the screen, you could see his thumb up for that. Can you do that again, Jim? 2 thumbs up. Perfect. Great. It is so important that we keep on doing this. I would also like to thank those that said that EASPD is seen as an agent of change. That is exactly what we want to be. We want to promote positive developments in close cooperation with you and in close cooperation with the European institutions. Of course, European Union, but also the Council of Europe. We want to work together with all these actors and promote positive change. Last but not least, you want, and you rightly said it in different ways, be a more central part in the work of EASPD. There is a unique opportunity for that, because in exactly 1 month from now, we will elect a new board and a new executive committee, a new president, new vice president, a new treasurer, and 13 new board members. Those that feel an interest in working together with all the other colleagues from across the European continent on improving services and services systems in implementing the ambition of the UN Convention. If you're interested in having a position in the governance of EASPD, please send in your candidature for one of these positions. You can, in fact, send in a candidature for several positions if you would want to do that. It would give also your region a stronger voice in the work of EASPD, which is our common work. It is our work. So please consider becoming a candidate for the board or the executive committee of EASPD. You have time until the 30th of this month to send in your papers. So I wrap up here. Thank you very much to all those that contributed to the report. Thanks a lot to all those that contributed to the very interesting debates and discussions we had. Again, thanks to Vasilka and Vlado for organizing this event. And of course, also thank you to Adriana, who was a bit the spider in the web that brought us together and that organized also things in a very practical and technical way. And also the backup that we have from the EASPD technical services. Thank you very much, guys. A great job done. See you soon. See you at the General Assembly and see you for the conference, which is not in Cork, but we still call it our Cork conference. And it is on art and participation in the cultural life. So I'm sure that that is of interest of all of you as well. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.